Hey everyone, welcome to today's live stream. If you aren't a regular here, I go live pretty much every week around this time. I might be sorry about that. Oops. Okay, sorry about that. Can you guys hear me? See me? I think I was having some internet connection problems. But I think we're good now. Anyways, I might be a little bit hit or miss here and there for the next few weeks as far as live streams go, but generally speaking, I live stream at around the same time every week. Anyways, today I figured we would just have a show and tell, talk a little bit about some of our language learning methods. I'll share what I do. I'll show you guys, I'll share my screen with you guys and let you know what I'm doing. All right, Big Fan says, I can see you now and also hear you. Good, excellent. Glad to hear it. And then obviously I'm the only one who can share my screen, but I'm sure a lot of you guys will give me a whole bunch of suggestions and input in the chat. And so I can check out things that you guys recommend. And to tell you the truth, very often on this channel, I have a chat with you guys. Someone recommends a language learning app to me, and then I try it out. Maybe an app that I've never heard of or never have given second thought to. And then I'll try it out and love the app. Just a few weeks ago, someone recommended Closemaster to me. Now, Closemaster is an app that I didn't start using it. I tried it out one time, probably 3 or 4 years ago when I was learning French. And, just to see what it was like, tried it one time, never came back to it again. And then just a few weeks ago, someone mentioned to me, you should try Closemaster. And I thought, okay, I'll give it a second try. And you know what? I have been using Closemaster every day for about the last month and a half. In fact, the reason I'm doing that is because I decided I'm going to make a review video of Closemaster. That's not to say that Closemaster is my favorite app. I don't think it's perfect. I don't think it's groundbreaking, but it's helpful enough that I've been using it somewhat regularly. Hi, Joel. He says, greetings from Nicaragua. Hi, Lucas. Hi, Striram. Thanks to everyone. Miguel, thanks for joining. All right. And, now that I'm just talking your ear off about Closemaster, actually, I didn't intend to do that. Because like I said, I am planning on just making a, can you see my screen? I am planning on just doing a review video in a month or so. So let me log in really quick. Oops, it's probably going to make me. Let me do this really quick. Oh, good. It didn't need to use the two-factor identification. That's strange. Anyways, Closemaster is an app that I've been using. Let me just kind of give you an example here. So it just shows you a sentence, and then you have to choose the word that goes into the sentence. And I actually... That wasn't a very good example because the sentence was very short. Okay, how many close friends do you have? Kun mi pun sni gikon.
Kun mi pun sanit gikon.
All right, chan mi mao let. I have a cat and a dog. Oh, oh gosh, there's a strange word for dog that no one actually uses. And the word in Thai that I am familiar with for dog is ma, but that's not the one. There we go.
ฉันมีแมวและสุนัขแมวมีสีดำและสุนัขมีสีขาว
Anyways, this is an example, right? They give you a whole sentence and then they help you learn words in the context of a sentence, which in my opinion is better than other types of flashcards that just teach you words in isolation outside of the context of a sentence. Anyways, all of that to say that Closemaster is something that I wouldn't have even really been using or considering if I hadn't talked to one of you guys. So I actually love it when you guys recommend stuff to me. Pretty much almost every app that I've been using lately has been because at some point someone recommended it to me. That's originally why I first started using Link. That's the reason I originally first started using Pimsleur. Trying to think of other apps. There's just a whole bunch of apps and websites and resources and techniques that I wouldn't even be aware of yet if it wasn't for a lot of you guys on here. So anyways, today's show and tell, for those who I know people are kind of trickling in slowly. I'm here to just have a chat to you guys about what apps you use, what apps, what websites, what techniques. It doesn't have to be online. Maybe you do something every day in a journal. Let me know what you do. And if you guys regularly use any strategies for learning that I am not familiar with, I'll check it out. So that's the plan for today. Okay, well, I know I'm missing some of the comments here. Okay, Miguel Rosa says, I was thinking to learn German by memorizing sentences gradually every day, but it was wrong. Yeah, you know, memorizing sentences isn't a terrible idea, in my opinion. It's a lot better to memorize a phrase or a sentence than individual words. Right? Because let's say you memorize the German word for at. I don't speak German, so I don't even know what this word is. At can mean a lot of things in English, right? We can say, let's meet at 6 o'clock. So I'm using at to refer to a time. You could say, let's meet at the bank. Now I'm using at to refer to a place. You could say, I'm not mad at all. And then at doesn't seem to have any kind of relation to the temporal or the spatial preposition that you were using it as earlier. So if I just learn, this is one of my pet peeves when I have a flashcard app that just teaches me the word for at and then the translation into the target language. It's like, no, that doesn't help me because I don't know how to use that word in a sentence. What I need is a sentence that uses the word at in it. And I probably actually need a whole bunch of sentences that use the word at to help me really get a sense and a feel for how this word is supposed to be used in context. Miguel Rosa says, I will try for context again with Link. That's Lingq, for those who don't know. Yeah, in fact, that is another one that I use quite a bit. Let me just show you this here. I know most of you guys probably are already familiar with Link because I recommend it all the time. So I actually have been reading Les Miserables in French. Well, actually, to tell you the truth, I've been slacking on that for the last few weeks. But Link is really nice because it lets you, let's see, I'm in part 11 right now. It lets you read through a novel, read through something interesting to you. It doesn't have to be a novel. It could be a news article, could be a history book, it could be a YouTube video. And it just makes it really easy to click on words that that you don't know yet. Let me see, where's a word? Like here, rayonner.
Rayonner.
Rayonner, right? And then you just click on the word that you don't know. It immediately shows you a translation of that word. And you don't need to stop and pull out your dictionary and look words up. You don't need to really stop your train of thought as you're reading through the story. You can just keep plowing through the story and still understand what's going on. Okay. And to me, that's very helpful because, well, there's a few schools of thought, right? You have what's called intensive reading and extensive reading. Intensive reading being where you stop and look up every word and make sure you understand everything. Extensive reading is where you care less about understanding everything and you just read as much as possible. Both have value. As far as I understand, extensive reading is actually more valuable than intensive reading. But I think Link can give you a good balance between the two, where you still understand quite a bit, but it doesn't take you a whole lot longer than if you were just reading through and ignoring all the words that you don't know. All right. And if you are interested in this, in Link, let me just show you my little affiliate link here. It's link.com/en/Finctum languages, and I'll just throw that in the chat really quick. This is an affiliate link, so if you are already interested in subscribing to Link, check out that link, and you'll save 35%. And I will also get some money back from that. So, you know, we both win there. And I also want to make a disclaimer that at first I was very reluctant to accept any kind of compensation for recommending Link, right? Because I am only comfortable recommending products to my subscribers that I actively use and enjoy, and apps that maybe not necessarily apps that I use, but apps that I at least believe in, right? Because right now I'm not using Link a whole lot because they don't have Thai. But I have used it a lot, and I do believe in Link. And I recommended it for a long time before they even offered me this affiliate link. I have been offered other affiliate links, other commissions from other language learning products that I just don't believe in, and I won't recommend them, or at least I recommend them with a grain of salt, right? Like if Duolingo came to me, let me pull up Duolingo. Because Duolingo, I've done a number of videos. I actually just did a video on Duolingo just earlier this week, right? Duolingo is a website and an app that I have used quite a bit. Okay, I've gone through all of these lessons in French. I have learned Esperanto, Spanish, Greek, a little bit of German. Come on, why won't it let me? A little bit of German, a little bit of Portuguese. I tried Klingon. I used it to learn Romanian for a few months. Duolingo is an app and a website that I have okay feelings about, mixed feelings. It's not the worst. It's not. Some people hate it. Some people say Duolingo is the worst. It's not the worst. It's not the worst. It's not great. I would hesitate to even say that it's really good, but it's okay. You can use Duolingo, especially if you find it fun. And in the early stages, when you're first learning a language and you're excited about this new language, you're in the honeymoon stage of that language, Duolingo is fun. It is a little bit fun for a while. Okay. So if Duolingo came to me and offered me an affiliate link and said, we'll give you 10% or 20% or whatever of the subscriptions that you that you generate for us, I wouldn't change my tune about Duolingo at all. I would just continue to say Duolingo is okay. There's better apps out there. I want you to make the best use of your money. If you are going to subscribe to Duolingo, then use my link and save some money and make me a little bit of money. But otherwise, use more effective apps like Link. Okay, I'm going to keep recommending Link. And there's plenty of other apps. I have fairly good feelings about Pimsleur, you know. Not to say that Pimsleur is the greatest language learning system out there, but I have used it extensively and I have enjoyed it and I have learned a lot from it. Memrise is an app that I have used quite a bit and I have okay feelings about. Closemaster is an app that I started using just recently and I have pretty decent feelings about Closemaster. I generally like it. There's another app I've been using lately called Language Learning with Net. Sorry about that. That's the second time I just logged out of this page. I went to go open the Language Learning with Netflix page, and I accidentally did that in the same browser tab as this live stream. Okay, so Language Learning with Netflix. Let me just share that with you really quick. Okay, they have this page here. See, I just say that I'm learning Thai. And they have this page here of a bunch of Thai movies and movies and TV shows, I should say. I don't know why I said websites. And you can just watch on Netflix. So let me pull this up here. Some of these shows are, like this one is coming soon. Oops. Oh, no, it's not. It's actually showing. So like, for example, oops, I'm not sharing my screen anymore. So for example, wait, can you guys still see me? Okay, I think you can still see me, right? So for example, you know, I'll watch through this TV show in Thai, and then it will show the Thai subtitles up here, along with the English subtitles down there. And I'll listen to it in Thai, watch it in Thai. And I have been doing this recently, and I like it. I have been learning, you know, it's good to be able to hear the Thai language, and you're doing something that's fun. It's engaging, right? Like I watch Netflix for fun. When you're using English subtitles and watching a TV show, or I should say, when you're using your native language, the subtitles in your native language while you're watching a TV show, it can be like, don't treat that as really solid quality language learning time, but treat it as passive input, which is what it is, right? Like you're focusing on the story, you are reading your native language, and you're not sitting down and just dedicating time to learning the language, but you are getting exposure to the sounds of it. You'll see how people, if you're watching, this is a good time to not use translations. Like don't watch Star Wars translated into Thai. Watch a Thai movie, right? Because then you'll see how people interact in Thailand, right? If you watch a Thai movie, then you'll see people greeting each other like this rather than like this, okay? And, you know, it's fine if you are just interested in learning the language, but language and culture are very closely connected. And there's just some cultural things that are hard to translate that into another language. right? So so you can do it, but it's just better to watch languages that, or watch TV shows and movies that are in the language, originally in the language that you are trying to learn, in my opinion. Now, there is some debate about whether translations are better when you're reading a book. And I kind of agree with that. I don't have a ton of experience with this, actually, but I do have some, because I just earlier this year, I read a book called Le Joueur d'échecs, which is originally in German. It's from an Austrian writer, and it's translated into French. And I read the French translation. It's kind of nice, because when you're reading a translation, well, imagine what has to happen when someone translates a book. Okay, let's say there's a book written in English, and there's a phrase in the book. The author writes, "It was raining cats and dogs." Well, if I'm a non-native English speaker reading this book, and then I read, like, I'm reading through the book and I'm understanding most of it, and then I see the word cat and I see the word dog, and I'm like, hey, I understand the word cat and I understand the word dog. So the author is saying something about cats and dogs. Okay, no, actually the author is not saying something about cats and dogs. They're saying something about the rain, and it's just an expression that has to do with rain. It has nothing to do with cats and dogs, but that might go over your head if you're a non-native English speaker reading the English original of the book. But now let's say a translator translates that book into another language. Well, they don't have a direct phrase that's exactly there's not a phrase in the target language that means it was raining very hard, and it also uses the word for cat and the word for dog, right? That might be a relatively rare phrase to exist in many languages. So instead of saying it was raining cats and dogs, the translator will just translate it into it was raining very hard. And that's an example of a time where reading a translation of a story might actually be more beneficial, because it's a little more comprehensible than reading the original story in the original language. So with novels, I would say you can get away with reading translations. And some people would argue that it's better. With TV shows and movies, you can also get away with it, but it's just not going to be the same, because let's say you're watching Friends or How I Met Your Mother in Thai. I don't know if those shows have been translated into Thai, but the entire series takes place in New York, and everything they do reflects the culture of New York. Miguel Rosa says, my link isn't working on a cell phone. Well, that's a shame. Maybe try it out. You're talking about this link here. Let me try to repost that. The link for link. Rather unfortunate name. The URL that you can use to get a discount on link. Anyways, all of that to say, language learning with Netflix is good, especially if you use resources like movies and TV shows designed for native speakers. That's what I would recommend. And I know I'm missing a lot of comments here, so I apologize. Perdón, yo veo que están hablando español en el chat. Okay. What tips do you have for someone who wants to start learning German and knows nothing? Where would you start? I don't speak German. I actually did, and I don't know if you guys remember this. I did a live stream probably 2.5 years ago where I just learned German for 12 hours straight. And that was an interesting experience. So I used Duolingo. I think, like I said, I have mixed feelings about Duolingo. One thing that Duolingo does generally well is that it lets you dip your toes into the language and just test it out. You learn the first, 200 words in the language from Duolingo. There's some benefit to that. Okay, Duolingo is okay at the very beginning when you first start learning a language. I have found that when you're learning a language that doesn't use the Latin alphabet, Duolingo immediately becomes a lot less enjoyable, at least for me. I remember once, just for fun, I tried the Duolingo Chinese course for like 3 or 4 days, and it sucked. Like, they were testing me on, I don't even remember. I think they were testing me on the pinyin and like testing me on remembering the Chinese characters and stuff. Or maybe they weren't. I don't even remember. All I remember is I was like, man, this sucks. This is not a good course. The Greek Duolingo course started off by trying to teach me all of the letters. And I'm like, what are you doing? I don't want to learn the letters first. I want to learn words, right? Once I know a few words, then I will just get the letters. Which, I guess that's an approach. You do have to learn letters, but I just wasn't a fan. Duolingo didn't have the immediate impact of like when I was learning French or Spanish or Esperanto, and I could just jump right into Duolingo and start immediately learning vocabulary words, which is what I really enjoyed. So you can use Duolingo, especially for German, which uses the English alphabet, or the Latin alphabet. Pimsleur is something that I have enjoyed up front. Now, Pimsleur and Duolingo can only take you so far. Don't be under the impression that in order to improve and in order to learn German, you have to be dedicated to Pimsleur and Duolingo. That's a misconception that I feel like a lot of people have. And your progress through the language is not tied to Pimsleur or Duolingo. I would recommend Link. I always recommend Link. Start reading their mini stories from the very beginning. Now, I always recommend Link. I would say that at the very beginning, Link is less useful. Okay. For myself personally, when I started learning Greek, I actually started using Link right from day one. I started reading their mini stories, which are relatively easy, even for someone who doesn't know anything about the language. And I found that to be relatively helpful. But the real value of Link comes after you've learned at least a few hundred, maybe a few thousand words. Okay. Once you can start reading through interesting content on Link, then exposing yourself to the language is no longer a chore that you have to force yourself to do. It's something fun, right? You sit down with your novel and you read through your novel on Link, and it's like relaxing and it's enjoyable. That's why I love Link. Okay. It's not impossible to use it from the very first day you start learning a language, but it's just going to feel like a lot more of a grind at that point. Another thing that I recommend a lot to anyone who is learning French, German, English, or Spanish is a TV show called Extra, which you can find on YouTube. I'm pretty sure the full series is available in all 4 of those languages. Just type in Extra French or Extra Spanish or Extra German. And it's a sitcom, kind of like How I Met Your Mother or Friends, and but it's designed for non-native speakers. So it's in very easy language, and it's quite enjoyable. Although low budget and kind of cheesy. Low-ish budget, I should say. And, it's not terrible. It's a little bit outdated now, though. It's about 15, 20 years old. When I started watching that show, it was only about 5, 6 years old. Wow. Doesn't seem like it's been that long. Anyways, Sriram says, are you attending Retoso 2021? It's an Esperanto online event taking place in April. I haven't heard of that yet. I do enjoy. I am actually right now. I'm attending an Esperanto, a weekly Esperanto course. It's been very nice. It is a grammar course, so we're learning about grammar, but that's okay because I'm interested in grammar, and the entire course is in Esperanto. So it's still comprehensible input. You know, I guess sometimes we make a distinction between learning grammar and comprehensible input, but there's no reason that grammar stuff can't also be comprehensible input, right? The problem is when you focus so much on memorizing grammar that you stop getting comprehensible input, right? Like if you're learning Spanish and you read an English language article about Spanish grammar, that's not really helpful. It might be very marginally and superficially helpful, but that is not the process of learning a language. It can be an aid, like you can read an English language grammar book about whatever language you're learning, and you know, it'll help you depending on your personality, depending on your learning style. It can be a help. It can help you, but that's not the key to language learning. I'll just say it like that. I'm sorry, my nose is very itchy. My nose gets very itchy every time I'm on camera, and I don't know why. Okay, Miguel Rosa says, I don't know if you agree, but languages far beyond your mother language is very complicated to remember vocabulary. How do you revise with Duolingo? I'm not entirely sure I understand the question. So I don't use Duolingo for very long. It's nice at first to learn some of the vocabulary. It's fun. You learn some basic sentence structures, right? Because Duolingo uses full sentences, which I appreciate. Sometimes they're bizarre sentences like, the chicken did not eat my grandmother. And you're like, well, that's good to know. I appreciate that they use full sentences rather than trying to teach you individual words, right? Generally speaking, they teach you some individual words at first, whatever, that's fine. But they go straight into full sentences. That's good. I don't particularly like that the whole thing is dedicated to translating from your native language. Like, that's just not... I don't really want to be using my native language when I'm learning a target language. And you don't have to. There's no reason you have to do that. Linguitarian says, no pienso que seas amigos con esa persona si solo quieres practicar idiomas con ello. I'm not sure what that is in reference to. There must have been a comment earlier. Shurim says, my own learning is a random mix of speaking to natives, watching target language TV, and reading with the help of Link, with different mixes depending on the language. Sounds good. Yeah, so I've said this many times. My 3 areas that I need to hit in a target language when I first started learning is conversation practice, vocabulary acquisition, comprehensible input. Okay, I tend to be quite pro the speak from day one philosophy. Like many of you have probably heard Benny Lewis talk about speak from day one. You won't be able to say very much from day one. You're going to make lots of mistakes. If you start having a conversation in your target language the first day that you start learning, you won't be able to say very much. Right? I'm not under the impression that this is a great way of actually learning a lot. To me, the advantage of starting to speak right away is that you break the ice. You get through the difficult part, the fear of speaking. If you break that barrier right away and you come out of your silent box, it's just going to be a lot easier to engage in conversation later. Okay, because so many people prolong their silence period. So many people wait to speak long after they should. All right, and it's not to say that speaking from the first day is the key, but at least if you speak from day one, at least you've kind of opened that box and you've let yourself out, and you're starting to develop that sense of being comfortable with speaking your target language. And the earlier you do that, the better, because then you won't feel so limited, and you will start to be comfortable just expressing yourself in the target language, and you'll be okay with making mistakes. More okay, like you know, it's not magic. It takes time. It's a process. Como no debería ser amigos con esta persona. Okay, I saw some people. Oops, wait. Sorry, I just lost this comment. Sorry, so many comments. Wow, I'm missing a lot of comments. I apologize. Okay. Okay, here we go. I saw some people saying that learning with series and movies requires to watch 2 to 3 times sequentially the same thing. It looks boring. That's not true. I watch the series one time with language learning with Netflix. I think there's definitely some benefit to watching a series over and over. To tell you the truth, when I was learning French and I was using Extra French, which I mentioned earlier, I watched the first episode of that series probably 50 times in 1 month. I just watched it over and over and over. And it was a little bit of a grind, but I basically had the whole first episode memorized. I could tell you, I could recite their lines by heart. I could recreate their intonation, more or less. Like, not saying that I didn't develop their native accent by listening to them, but I just started to really get a feel and a sense of how French is spoken by listening to these native speakers speak French and say the same things over and over and over and over. That really helped me internalize a lot of what they were saying. So I think there is some value in that. You don't have to do it. It's not wrong to watch through a series, especially later on when you can just watch extensively, watch a whole bunch, and not have to constantly stop and look words up and guess what they're doing, right? Language learning gets easier as you go on, in that regards, at least. Miguel says, with movies, it's better to sound in subtitles into the foreign language. Yeah, that's not wrong. But once you get to that point. Okay, let me keep looking here. The Russian one is nearly impossible if you don't know Cyrillic. Yeah, you're talking about the Duolingo course, right? And that's a big limitation of Duolingo. Although, okay, I just don't use Duolingo with non-Roman alphabet languages on the website. I do it on my phone because I can just download a Greek keyboard or, you know, a keyboard of whatever language I'm trying to learn on Duolingo. I don't even bother with that on the website when I'm limited to the keyboard that I have on my laptop. Shriram says, Lingodeer is better than Duolingo for Chinese, at least in my experience. Yes, I have heard that. I can't verify it, but I have heard that from multiple sources. And I can say from my own personal experience, the Duolingo Chinese course, at least the first few levels, sucked. Nihar says, for German specifically, the grammar can sometimes trip people up when trying to learn dative for the first time, and it's a little hard to wrap my head around, haha, but learning German grammar helps. That's fine if you want to learn grammar. If you're interested in grammar, if you like grammar, if it's fun for you to learn grammar and you don't feel obligated to learn it, to memorize grammar rules, do what is fun for you. I'm not saying that you have to stop doing everything else and start doing what is most efficient to learn your language, right? You can do things that are fun. You don't spend all of your day in the absolute most productive 100% efficiency mode. Sometimes you do things not because they're productive, but just because they're fun. Okay, cool. If that's grammar for you, learn grammar. If you're trying to learn the language in the most efficient way, stop studying grammar, because that's not the most efficient thing you can do. Conversation practice, vocabulary acquisition, comprehensible input. Other things can be a side thing, right? You can, if you want to learn grammar, study grammar for 5 minutes a day, and then get into a lot of comprehensible input. Read stories that are at your level, okay? Read graphic novels. Right now I'm reading through a gingerbread man graphic novel. The series is called Cookie Run, and it's made for probably 11 to 13-year-olds. And I'm reading through it in Thai, right? And it's a kid's book. It's just interesting enough to hold my attention. And, you know, I mean, it's an action story, right? It's like these little gingerbread men running around solving mysteries and solving crimes and stuff like that. Okay. And I wouldn't read it for fun as an adult just by itself, but it can hold my attention enough with the additional knowledge that I'm learning a language with it. Okay, Linguitarian says, learn the alphabet on your own, then go back. Yeah, I did not like Duolingo for learning alphabets. Okay, English and French don't make sense when it comes to spelling. True. Link, link, link. Yes, link is good. Someone says, how do you spell link? Yeah, it's a very unfortunate name, in my opinion. L-I-N-G-Q is pronounced link. And so when you hear me talking about link and how I recommend link, and I was reading on link, that's what I'm talking about. L-I-N-G-Q. All right, sorry, I'm just scrolling through some of the comments here. Lots of comments. I don't have anyone to kind of moderate this for me. Elise says, I love learning new languages with music. Yeah, and I agree. I actually think music is a highly underrated form of learning languages. Actually, my video that I just edited, it's going to be coming out on Monday, is about that. Music is just a way that helps me embed vocabulary and sentence structures in my mind. If you think about it, think about the childhood TV show that you watched when you were 5 or 6 or 10, okay? And you might be 60 years old now, but there's a good chance you remember most of the words to that childhood TV show. At least I do, personally. Music just has a strange way of helping us remember words and phrases. And it's very useful. There's a website called lyricstraining.com. Let me share that with you. Lyricstraining.com. And it's all about songs in your language. And I find this to be fairly helpful, especially early on when you first start learning a language. It's a little bit limited. I mean, you know, it's not terribly limited. They have a good dozen languages on here. But, you know, they have a lot of the most common languages, too. They don't have Thai or Greek, which kind of sucked for me. But, yeah, if you want to spend a little bit more time learning languages with music, lyricstraining.com is not a bad use of your time. Danilo says, do you have a tip for French beginner? I actually made a video a few weeks ago about how I learned French, or like what you should do to learn French. Link is always good. LINGQ. Again, here I'll just show you the that website again. Here's Link. Here is the coupon code you can put in. You know, if you or I guess the URL you can go to for a 35% discount. I like Link a lot. Duolingo is not bad when you're first starting. It fairly quickly starts to get boring and less useful. Extra French is a TV show that's all on YouTube. You can watch the whole series for free, and it's designed for beginners, so that's very nice. Asriram says target language ASMR. Oops, let me do that. Target language ASMR can be good for comprehensible native content. Anything where native speakers are speaking slowly and clearly, like an ASMR video or a yoga video a lot of times, or a meditation video, I find those to be very good. Because the problem with native level material, I hear a lot of people say you should just listen to native level material so that you can eventually get to the native level. Yeah, but it's not comprehensible. I don't want to spend an hour watching a movie that's native level, but I don't understand, or I only understand 5 or 10% of it. What I want is a native level, like I want to hear a native speaker that's speaking slowly and clearly enough for me to follow most of what they're saying. So in that regard, yoga videos, ASMR videos, meditation videos, where the speaker is speaking intentionally slowly and clearly because they want the video to be very calming. So they speak in a slow, clear, relaxing voice. To me, that is helpful because it makes native level material more comprehensible. Sorry, I know I'm missing. People are commenting how I'm so far behind in the chat. Okay, are there good resources to learn Turkish? I don't know. I'm sorry. I've never learned Turkish. I don't know what is available and what's not. Same with Creoles. I've never learned any Creole, unless you consider English a Creole, which I heard some people do, but I think that's kind of a misunderstanding of what a Creole is. Okay, agree to start speaking right away. Yeah. Okay, Hava says, start speaking right away. I talk to my kids, pets, and even myself at the beginning. Right, and, you know, part of being able to speak a language is just getting that muscle memory with learning where to put your tongue in your mouth. If you're learning Spanish, you have to learn how to do the r. If you're learning French, you have to learn r and u and e, right? If you're learning Thai, you have to learn u, like mu, and that's not a natural sound that comes out of your mouth if you're a native English speaker. If you're learning English, you have to learn how to pronounce R's and L's, and that's not normal for a lot of languages. Okay, you have to know how to pronounce the difference between a V and a W, which can be very difficult for a lot of people. So practicing speaking, actually the action of moving your mouth, whether or not you're with someone, is going to be helpful practice to you. All right. In Spanish, there's this thing where they pronounce T's and D's a little bit differently than we do in English because they're not aspirated, and they also, your tongue touches the teeth rather than your alveolar ridge, which is behind your teeth. I know I'm getting very technical here. So there's two small differences with how they pronounce T's and D's. So rather than saying with an English accent, toro, they would say toro, right? Where your tongue actually touches your teeth. And that's a small difference, but it does make a small change in the sound. Toro, okay? Toro. Pues, in order to help myself develop that muscle memory of putting my tongue against my teeth rather than against my alveolar ridge when I'm speaking Spanish, I would sit in my truck and I would just repeat, todos los toros te dan tesoros, right? And I would just say that over and over because it has T's, it has D's, it has some R flaps in there. Todos los toros te dan tesoros. And I would just say that over and over by myself to kind of train myself how to pronounce those sounds. Davey says, I tried Duolingo for Esperanto and it turns really boring. And for Chinese, I don't really think it's a good idea to use it. That's interesting you say that. Esperanto, I would say, is the one language that I think Duolingo is actually quite good. Like the Duolingo course for Esperanto is very well made, in my opinion. And also, it's probably partially a testament to Chuck Smith, who made that Duolingo course, and the team that worked with him. And also, I think it's a testament to just how easy it is to learn Duolingo, to learn Esperanto. Like any language that can be learned using mostly Duolingo is very easy, and Esperanto is. It's very easy to learn. Himalaya says, is it fine to learn 2 to 3 languages at a time? Yes, it's fine, but it's not efficient. It's a lot harder to learn 2 to 3 languages than it is to learn 1. So just keep that in mind when you're setting your goals for yourself. Okay. Elise says, I get frustrated easily when I try to speak right away, trying to learn French now. Those R's, my mother tongue is Portuguese. Yeah. Parts of the benefit of speaking right away, as opposed to waiting later, is you have to realize part of the goal, I would say actually the main goal, in my opinion, the main goal of starting to speak right away is not to improve your language learning, to improve your level in the language drastically right away. The goal of speaking right away is to improve your mindset, to stop being a perfectionist, to be okay with flubbing around and making lots of terrible mistakes and having a terrible accent and bad pronunciation and being okay with saying something that you know has bad grammar in order to get your point across. For me, Speak from Day One is an exercise in managing your own self-consciousness. You know, you're managing your expectations of yourself and coming out of your comfort zone and learning to be okay with imperfection. That, to me, is the beauty of Speak from Day One. Now, Speak from Day 60 is more or less designed to help you start improving in the language. You know, but Speak from Day One has different goals, partially to help you improve in the language, but more so to help you improve your mindset and your attitude about language learning. Davey said, did you really train to learn Mandarin? Did you master the tones? How did you master the tones? I started learning Mandarin for like one day on Duolingo just for fun. And I did not master the tones. I would say my tones in Thai have come a long way. I hear a lot of other foreigners try to speak Thai and they just completely disregard the tone distinctions, which you can't do in Thai. I had this one friend and I heard him say, Kun put pasa anki geng mak, which I understood what he was saying, but what he should have said is Kun put pasa anki geng mak instead of Kun put pasa anki geng mak, right? It's the same consonants and vowels, but the tones are very important in Thai. So that's not something that you can just disregard. Well, you can, but you shouldn't if you want to actually become proficient and good in the language. Louis Raphael says, I'm a native French speaker and I wouldn't recommend to learn grammar at first. Too complicated, but rather try to speak, read, and listen, and you'll assimilate the grammar naturally. 100%. In fact, I would say you probably don't ever need to learn grammar rules. If you do enough reading and enough listening, you will subconsciously learn how the grammar works without ever studying and memorizing grammar rules. It's not to say that learning grammar rules is wrong. You can do that, and some people do it very effectively. As far as I'm aware, most research says that the learning, well, what they say is the acquisition of languages does not take place in the memorizing of grammar rules. It takes place in practicing using the language and taking in input. Okay. Grammar memorization can be a useful support mechanism at best. All right. Seung Mao says, if you could devote 6 to 8 hours to Thai every day, do you think you could reach C1 in 2 years? Yes. Yes, I could. I feel like basically anyone could. With 6 to 8 hours, C1, okay, you have to use the right methods though, right? 6 to 8 hours a day, that's a full-time job, right? If you can do that, you can become very proficient in a language. I shouldn't say anyone can do it, but that seems like a very reasonable goal to do. C2, I don't know. You know, C2 is a very, very high level of proficiency. All right, Elise says, I love grammar, why all the hate? And to tell you the truth, I am very interested in grammar too. I find it very interesting. I like learning about grammar. I like analyzing grammar, thinking critically about grammar. I studied linguistics in college. Grammar is interesting to me. I mean, like my major was linguistics. I graduated with a degree in linguistics. I don't hate on grammar. I'm just saying that's not how you become fluent in a language. Like, it's not. Doesn't mean you can't learn grammar. It just means that if you're going to learn grammar, that's something you do on the side for fun, not something you do as your main source of learning the language. James says, what are your thoughts on reading while listening to the audiobook? That is a very good idea. As long as you make sure the audiobook and the text book are perfectly harmonious. Sometimes you'll read a translation, right, where the book is translated by one person and the audiobook was translated by someone else. And then so the books are not, like, you can't read them and listen at the same time because they don't match up. Even sometimes with original language works, like I was listening to Le Petit Prince in French, which is an original French book. And the audio book that I was listening to was like an abridged audiobook. It was almost more like a dramatization, right? Because the narrator did the different voices of all the different characters, and there was music in the background, and there was some long pauses for the music and some sound effects and stuff like that. And then some of the lines were left out, and so I wasn't even totally able to read along with the audiobook the whole way through. But generally speaking, yes, if you can read along with the audio while you read, that's very helpful. And that is really what Link is supposed to be all about, right? Like they have a lot of pre-uploaded podcasts and stories that have audio and text. That is their main focus. Davey says, I started to learn all the time tenses when I was learning English and just one before an exam. In 1 hour, I assume you mean? Yeah, like that just seems like a waste of time. Now, strange grammatical features of a language can be interesting. So, yeah, like I'm not saying it's a waste of time if you do something for fun, okay? If you want to sit in your basement and play Halo online for 4 hours on a Saturday afternoon, that's not a waste of time. I mean, maybe you would argue that's a waste of time, but I wouldn't, because if you're doing something fun, then that's why you're doing it. You're doing it because it's fun, and it's on a Saturday, so you know you can enjoy your day off and do what you do for fun. If you read grammar on your day off for fun, then hey, like that's, I'm not here to judge what you do for fun. If you want to do LARPing and get dressed up in wizard costumes and do live action role playing, I'm like, that's you, right? I don't understand why some people judge what other people do for fun. We all have different things. You know, some people don't understand why I would want to go sit out in a boat and catch fish on a summer day as opposed to just going to the grocery store and buying my salmon. But to me, it's fun, okay? So I'm not hating on grammar. Do what you do for fun. But if you're trying to learn a language most efficiently, then grammar studying is just not a part of that. It's a part of something else. Seung Mao says, you think learning a little linguistics can help you learn languages faster, since many linguists say a person may know how to drive well, but he cannot explain the insides of a car? I think learning linguistics has helped me become a better language learner. I also think if your goal is to learn Spanish and you think, hey, maybe learning linguistics first will help me learn how to learn Spanish better. That is a flawed goal, in my opinion, because you could just spend all of that time learning Spanish. Now, I find linguistics fascinating. Like I said, I majored in linguistics in college, and I created an entire video series called Linguistics 101. You can look it up. It's my most viewed video series on YouTube. In fact, I believe it's the most viewed linguistics series on YouTube, or at least it's like the first search result, or it was, unless Crash Course replaced me. But anyways, I love linguistics. I find it very interesting, and I would love if everyone went and watched my Linguistics 101 video series and learned about linguistics. And then, not just my series, but if all of a sudden the world became full of people who wanted to discuss linguistics with me, that would be awesome, because I find linguistics fascinating. I could talk about it all day long. But I don't think that will be more beneficial to people learning languages than people just studying the language, just reading in the language, listening to the language, practicing the language, learning vocabulary words in the language. So there's that. Do you have a list of languages you want to learn, or do you choose out of necessity or wait to see where life goes? The latter. I actually, at one point when I first started getting interested in language learning, I made a list of languages that I wanted to learn. And then I was like, well, this list is dumb. Like, the first language on there was Greek. But then I started traveling to Quebec, and all of a sudden I realized I don't want to learn Greek. I want to learn French. And then the next language on my list was Mandarin Chinese, and I was planning on making a trip to China. I was planning on spending the entire summer in China so that I could learn Mandarin. And not that I had any reason to learn Mandarin, I just wanted to learn it. And also a trip to China sounded fun. And then instead I moved to Thailand and I started learning Thai, which is a language that I actually never was interested in learning. I actually was a little bit hesitant. This is funny. I actually almost didn't want to move to Thailand, or like one of the negative aspects in my mind of moving to Thailand was that I would have to learn Thai. And I was like, but I would rather learn a more useful language. I really wanted to learn Mandarin, but I just realized rather than choosing to learn a language that I want to learn, I would rather spend my time learning a language that's actually going to benefit me, like Thai. And I don't know, now that I think about it, learning a language that is less commonly spoken and less commonly learned, like Thai, it's a good experience for me, because I could have just learned all of the other languages that everyone else learns. Like it's very common for people to want to learn Mandarin and Japanese and Korean, as far as Asian languages go, at least. It's comparatively very rare for people to want to learn Thai. And I kind of like that. It sort of sets me apart a little bit. I mean, if you're just a random person on the street, you probably don't know anyone who is learning Thai. Elise says, they're really good, your series. Thank you. I appreciate that. I was actually blown away. It's really funny. I started making this Linguistics 101 video series, and I say produced like I'm a producer. I uploaded the first 4 videos of the series, the general, like the intro, phonetics, phonology, and morphology. I did the first 4 videos in this series, and they got like almost no views. Like they were some of the least viewed video on my channel. And then I was like, well, it's not like I'm doing YouTube just for views, but I want someone to watch my video if I make it. You know, those videos took a lot of time and work to make because I had to do all of my research beforehand. I wanted to make sure I said everything correctly. It'd be very easy for me to make a little slip of the tongue and then say some wrong information, which I definitely don't want to do because people are using my linguistics videos to study for their final exams and stuff like that. I get a lot of comments from people who say that. So anyways, these videos were very time intensive. They took a lot of time. And when I was getting like 25 views on these videos, it was sort of like, well, am I going to keep doing this? Because it seems sort of like a waste of time if no one is going to bother to watch them. So I actually stopped making Linguistics 101 videos for like several months. And then I came back and looked one day and I was like, oh, now this Linguistics 101 video is my top viewed video on YouTube. So maybe I should continue with this series. And I don't understand how this happens, but there was one day when I was like, I wonder how my videos are ranking in the YouTube search. So I went into an incognito tab so that, like my past search results wouldn't influence what I found on YouTube. And I went into an incognito tab. And I just typed in Linguistics 101, and the first result that popped up was my video. And then the next result that popped up was a video by Steven Pinker. And I was like, I don't know how this happened, but I beat Steven Pinker on linguistics YouTube. So that was a proud moment of mine. Anyways, now there's this new series called Linguistics, a Crash Course Linguistics, which, Crash Course is a huge YouTube channel. They have like 12, 20 million subscribers. And they just started producing a linguistics series recently, which probably has replaced mine by now or will at some point, which is fine because, more people learning about linguistics. But my reign as king of the YouTube linguistics is over or will be over soon. Anyways, Ty says, how often should I look up a word when reading for a beginner? At the very beginning, you're just not going to know many words, so you can't really read extensively. At the very beginning, I read intensively, which means I look up every word or almost every word. Other than words that you can just kind of understand from context. As soon as possible, though, you want to move away from that. You want to move as quickly as you can. You want to move to reading through a book without looking up words. Don't waste your time going to the dictionary, looking up a word, and then going back to your book because it'll just take too long. You could make more progress by simply reading tons of words rather than getting to every single word that you don't know, stopping, going to look it up, coming back. That takes too long. Go for quality or quantity over quantity. I guess you could put it like that. Link helps with that. Link is a middle ground where it only takes a second to click on the word that you don't know. You see the translation, boom, move on. Okay, so yeah, Link is kind of helpful for a sort of a balance between intensive reading and extensive reading. Anyways, I am going to end the live stream here. So thanks to everyone who joined and watched and hung out with me. And, you know, we will be back with another chat a week from now. See you then. Bye-bye.